Hi Year 12, welcome to your video tutorial on the historical and cultural influences of designing and producing. So today we're looking at the second half of H2.1, I'm going to get my pointer, second half of H2.1, historical and cultural influences on designing and producing. Now, with this, you will need to remember the following headings. The historical and cultural influences have been changing social trends, cultural diversity, the changing nature of work, and technological change. They are the headings underneath these, and today we're going to go through each one of those. So society really directly influences design, and you can almost map changes in society with changes in designs and expectations. You can see that from anywhere from fashion to interior design to exterior, like architectural trends. Every aspect of design develops as the society the society is being designed for develops. So basically, as society changes, expectations or, changes in terms of technology, so does design. So in order to appreciate the state of, design and technology today, we need to consider the influence of society and societal issues. They involve, different social trends, cultural diversity, the changing nature of work, and technological change. So social trends. So designers have to be proactive with social trends. So as society's expectations or, what's in demand or what's trending in society changes, so does design. However, we can see that, just like I said before, from anything from fashion, interior design, exterior design, there's whole lots of really obvious examples in our industry. However, for designers to keep up, they actually have to predict trends. And this is probably most prevalent within our fashion industry. So if you want to remain competitive as a designer, you actually have to predict the trends and design for those. Otherwise, if if you look, Python's trending, okay, I'll design Python products. There's going to be too many similar. So as a designer, yes, you have to design with the trends, but designers a lot of the time set the trends. And as designers, if they want to keep ahead, have to predict what those trends will be. So, we've just spoken about it. Social trends such as fashion move really quickly and are determined by designers. And society simply consumes those based on trends. Like if you go back and have a look at the last 40 years of fashion, some of the time, retrospectively, it can be like, wow, did anyone really think that was a good idea to wear that? But designers are the ones that set the standards and set the trends. And these trends can be affected by, technological advancements. So we're seeing a lot of the use of modal fabric, and if you want to have a look into what that is, rather than nylon and polyester, if you want to have a look about what that is, I've linked it there for you. Foiling and sublimation in t-shirts in terms of being able to, print design. There's a lot of different trends that are happening as a result of social trends, particularly in the fashion industry. And some of those can be the result of technological advancements. So that's one part of it. Now, I suppose a later part of it is also in terms of changing social trends and, who are you designing for? If you roll back to the 1950s, a lot of your, luxury or non-essential items that were being designed, so, clothing or products, they were being targeted towards women. However, men in the post-2000, and I know this is the last 20 years, but still it's important, men post-2000 are bigger consumers than females are. So advertising campaigns have been directly targeted towards male consumers. So as a designer, when you're, designing your product, you're also having to align with that social trend and say, okay, if I'm designing this new menswear line, whereas previously I would go, hey, ladies, buy this for your man, I also now have to consider the male target market as a really target-rich, target-rich group or target group that I can design for. So as society changes in terms of, who takes responsibility for who cares about the consumptions of goods, Previously it was females, now it's males. That's another, example of this changing social trends. Again, now with changes in society and expectations around the institute of marriage, there's a lot more single living. So marriage rates are dropping, more people, young people are living in, shared houses, people wanting to live closer to the city. This has had an impact on transport as well as lifestyle requirements. So, designing for, that inner city life, a lot of these young people have a lot more disposable income. So as that group also becomes a target market due to social trends, so too do opportunities with design. As well as an increase in educational standards in Australia, over the last 100 years has meant the increase in the population, that increasingly the population have a higher disposable income. Now, we looked at economics and their influence on design. So as you would know from that, the more like the higher education and, the higher socioeconomic status generally of the country, the higher disposable income and the more they can afford luxury items, not just basic goods. So social trends, we think of these things as divorced from fashion, changes in expectation around marriage. What does that have to do with design? Or, changes around who's consuming goods. What does that have to do with design? But they're all interlinked to the way in which you as a designer have to design and target your product. So cultural diversity is also a big impact on, is a historical and cultural factor that has influenced the way we design and produce. So the cultural diversity of Australia has resulted in, many PSEs based on the specific needs of ethnic communities. So immigration patterns have affected, what goods and services are available and what community and cultural groups consume. What we find a lot of the time is that you tend to get cultural pockets appear when groups reside in communities. So, Chinatown, Harris Park, Leichhardt for Italian people. Marrickville is a combination of Greek and Vietnamese, and they have different products designed. However, that's one part of cultural diversity. However, the other part of cultural diversity is when you're designing your product, all people, regardless of whatever race, background, religion, should have the right to access it, just like they have the right to access education, healthcare, services and employment opportunities. We adapt these services to meet them. So, multiple languages on an app, translators at places like Centrelink and Services New South Wales. These are the kind of things, the fact that we are a multicultural society, and we've spoken about this, this cultural diversity impacts on the way in which we design and produce. Now, one of the big ones and one of the, phrases you'll probably see in the HSC paper a lot is the changing nature of work. And this essentially has to do with a lot of different factors. It's not so much an idea in itself, but it's kind of interrelated between all of these different parts. Changes in social trends and societal expectations has led to a changing nature of work. So too has technology. So it's not a concept in itself, but it's definitely a concept that you need to understand so you can start to go, oh, okay, technology is kind of related to this as well, and so is this part, and so is this part. The trend at the start of the 20th century was a large number of people engaged. The trend at the start of the 21st century was a large number of people engaged in part-time work and flexible work hours. Now, this has been very, very different from what we've seen, previously, where people had full-time jobs and they worked, at a place, for an extended period of time. Now work has become so much more flexible, and how you work and workplace relations and issues such as leave and dismissal and superannuation have all started to become a government issue as our work is now becoming far less traditional. So there used to be the phrase, working 9 to 5, and you would have that job and, you'd see people in the same job for 15 years. Now at the start of the 21st century, we see, a lot of people working either flexible working hours, part-time, in contract work, and the work of designers is really changing alongside this. So globalization has also had a huge impact on the changing nature of work. So it's much easier to be a multinational. So global businesses are generally more profitable. And like we spoke about before, consumers and businesses are becoming much more global. So, you have an online platform now that's available 24/7. So you'll need people, if you've got people shopping online, you'll need people working online, and, you'll need far more bigger warehouses and distribution services, which is aided by, the ease of transport. And that's obviously helped online shopping, but the ease of being able to be in a globalized world has changed the nature in which we work. Australians are traveling much more because of work, and we earn more. And probably the best example of the changing nature of work has been, COVID-19. And what some of you have experienced, in 2020 of online learning. The changing nature of education flipped entirely. And we are a far more globalized world. We get statistics every, 30-second updates, and we have a very big idea about, what is happening around the world. And you guys can basically overnight flip and change the entire way in which you guys learn. Essentially. So the changing nature of work due to, the fact that we're all globally interconnected has changed, but work for designers has also changed as, what is expected of a career, in inverted commas, has changed too. Work has also changed. The changing nature of work has also been greatly impacted by technology. And you'll notice that there is a lot of questions in the HSC about technology. Technology is the key driver for design activities, and we can pretty much trace the evolution of design almost concurrently with the evolution of technology. That means we can see changes in designs as soon as we see technology evolve. And that is to do with either the way in which we make or mass produce. That's everything from the Industrial Revolution to, crazy 3D printing of limbs today. And what designers can actually produce. So we can almost trace the evolution of design on the same timeline as the evolution of technology. So when we're talking about design, there's a reason your subject is called design and technology. They're both two interrelated discourses. So technological changes not only impact production, but it's really impacted the way in which designers work if we look specifically at design. So when new and emerging technologies are discovered, they're transferred and filtered into consumer goods, and that's stuff like some really basic examples I was giving you with fabric before, but that's also with manufacturing processes. And, you can look at things like rapid development with CNC, anything, CNC lathes, and you can have a look at, I can give a couple of those examples to Google, or 3D printing. It's also to do with building and construction methods. So there's great examples of new and emerging tech where you can basically make a house out of polystyrene foam and pour in some concrete and it's done. But that's also, with new and emerging tech, that's also greatly impacted the transport and there was another stroke, transport, entertainment, but really all facets of society and design. As technology evolves, so does the way in which we produce and design goods. The big driver home, however, and what you commonly get questions about in the HSC is, the effect of technology on the way in which designers work. So up until recently, look, you were required, and I say recent times, I'm talking like the last 5-10 years, you were required to be physically on site at your workplace 5 days a week. Again, COVID-19. Great example. You were required to be on school on site 5 days a week. However, technology has now, broken down all of those barriers and permits working from multiple locations. So Microsoft in Australia, as an example, used to have an office of like hundreds and hundreds of employees. They would take nearly a block up at Macquarie Park. They've got that now down to an office. It's about 3 levels, and often you will only have sub 100 people in the office at any one time. They've done that through technology and the fact that they can now say to their workers, you're permitted to work from home or other locations. I had a contact there and, you know, she worked in the education department, and one day she was like, yep, calling you from Bondi. I'm just doing my work at a cafe. Because work as we know it traditionally doesn't have to be physically going to a site 5 days a week. Because we have technology that now will allow instant contact between people, even if their time zones apart. Another example of this is the fact that I have a friend who works for Google, and he's the only one who works in Australia. There's a stack of people that work in Europe and more people that work in the US. He is their boss, and he doesn't even work in the same country. This is made possible through technology. So you can, in terms of two things, obviously, the way in which three things: the way in which you present your work, the way in which you collaborate, and the way in which you communicate. Again, communication is the, you know, exchange of dialogue. Collaboration is working together to solve a problem. So make sure you know the difference between those two things. So technology has improved the way in which ideas are presented. So a lot of the time when you were talking about designing a product, it was pretty hard to prototype. And now you can get 3D, you know, modeling software or 3D printing, where in a couple of minutes you can mock up a prototype and take that to your client with 3D printing or with 3D modeling software. You know, previously where you were just looking at floor plans, for a lot of you, you'll be using CAD programs. And, you know, they've greatly evolved, particularly in the last 20 years or so. So now you can almost make simulations where you can put on a headset and actually walk through an architectural, you know, say a set of apartments. So the way in which you communicate your ideas or the presentation of ideas is one concept, and that's changed dramatically. So in terms of communication and collaboration, you can now work in global teams and collaborate in real time to communicate design processes. So, you know, Zoom or Skype, so that's the communication of it. But in terms of collaboration, you know, you can use cloud-based technology so all members can modify, change, or adjust. You can have a Zoom chat to collaborate as well, not just obviously communicate. You can have breakout rooms on Zoom or on Skype. You can talk, you can collaborate and, you know, come to understand your whatever part of the design process it is that you're doing. So technology not only has impacted on the production, but it's also impacted on the way in which people work and how designers collaborate and communicate their ideas. And that's it, guys. That's historical and cultural influences on designing and producing.